Everybody go, yippee, la, 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 yippee, la, la.
Just so happy to be here.
We are. We're a joyous bunch, honestly. We're so
We're
jubilant.
all so happy.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Music Box, the show where I, Bimler, enjoyer of music, show an album to my friend Pyrine.
Hey, what's up, Byron? You might have heard of me. I've been on the streets. I've been doing a few odd jobs here and there and whatever, you know, in case you ever need a bit of a thing done, you know who to call.
What's wrong with you?
Dude, look, I gotta come with a bit to start off this show, so, I gotta come up with it on the fly, all right?
We're 5 episodes in, and
things have
this
been
is
rough.
already how bad it is? Dude, come on.
Could you just
Get a
drop it?
Okay. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I show him an album, and then after a week, we meet up and we talk about it. But this week's a little different, okay? This week, I didn't even choose the album, and it's not just the two of us. I have my good friend Jordyn as a guest for this episode. Say hi.
Hi.
And this week, she showed the both of us Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antenna to Heaven by Godspeed You, Black Emperor. Quite the interesting record. One of the staples of the post-rock genre. Very interesting in format, being 4 songs, each of which... Can you stop hitting your mic, man? What's your deal?
What if I just hit you instead? How about that?
I feel like I'm like the wolf parents arguing gif.
Not again. It being 4 songs, each of which are in the ballpark of 20 minutes, being almost entirely instrumental with no vocals outside of a couple of samples, just overall a very interesting record. Jordyn, why don't you tell us a bit about your background with this record and what led you to love it so much?
This is definitely one of the most formative albums for me when I was really getting into listening to albums as a medium in music. As I think before listening to this, I'd say the average layout for an album you could probably say is roughly 10 to 13 songs. Each song will probably around 3 to 5 minutes or so, 40 to 50 minutes probably, right? It's probably roughly like a normal album layout. And I had just kind of seen that this album was floating around a lot because people said it was really good as I went around more music spaces. So one day, it just, literally, I checked it out for no other reason than I had seen it enough. I'm like, I want to peep it. And I pulled it up on Spotify. I remember being taken aback when I saw it was 4 songs that were 20 minutes and that it was an hour and a half. And I remember it took me about 7 minutes into the first track until I deduced on my own that, oh, there's no lyrics, is there? And it was very interesting. I think that might be part of why I love it so much, is that it's the kind of thing that, it's one of those things where, that part of the self-discovery for you, makes it that much better. Where just you finding it on your own and kind of, it just being this whole new thing really makes it hit even more for you. But nonetheless, I listened to this album and it's a very visual album for me. It absolutely transported me to the world that this album seems to be, at least to me when I listen, almost just trying to make you envision and describe with its music and samples. And it was such a visual thing for me that to this day it remains one of my favorite albums because I haven't heard many albums that have made me envision things quite as vividly as this album has.
Yeah. Now, as much as I said before that it was shown this week, Pyrine actually listened to it a little bit before I did. But yeah, like Jordan said, this is one of her favorite albums ever. And she's been dying to show it to me for a while. I've actually heard it a couple of times in the past, but I hadn't really locked in and immersed myself in it until very recently, this week. And I've gained a lot of respect for the record. I love a lot of the new things that it does, but I do think I am kind of the oddball out of this trio when it comes to opinions on the record, as I think I like it the least. Not that I dislike it, but I think I like it... What?
I said he's an oddball in more ways than one.
What's that supposed to mean, bro?
Why don't you continue talking, bro?
I mean, for one, you're short.
What?
That's true. He is very short.
That is true. They
I've
are
seen
both
him.
really tall, and I'm not even short. I'm literally average height. They're both just really tall.
He's average height, guys.
I am. I'm 5'9". Google it. That is what?
Don't tell anyone. He's closer to 5'2".
Who are you gonna believe?
He's so embarrassed.
Who are you gonna believe? Your handsome, earnest,
I'm
relatable,
the guest.
down-to-earth
Clearly,
host,
I would
or the
tell a
evil,
lie.
freaky Cheshire Cat grin-having co-host
What is
and
your problem?
gelatinous stranger?
I didn't do anything. I am simply existing in my messianic,
You're
godlike
making fun of
state
me.
at all points in time.
Uncalled for. We can talk about an album.
Is it
I'm
really
being called
an
short.
insult
How did
if
we
it's a
even get
fact?
here? It's not a fact. You are lying.
I really like Godspeed. You're like, I really like this album when I listened to it myself personally. If we're gonna get back into that, I really enjoyed it. Jordyn's the one that showed it to me first because every now and then we just kind of show each other stuff that we enjoy, and I was really interested in this album because I'd heard of it. It's pretty popular. It came back out in like 2000, right? And it is pretty substantially important in a lot of the music community. I'd heard of it. It's a lot of references in a lot of pieces of media, and I was like, at some point I gotta check it out. Jordyn says it was a pure 10 out of 10 album, so I was like, fuck it, let's listen to it. Hit me, and I thought it was goddamn amazing. I thought it was great. I thought, like, as a singular piece of musical media, it was very masterfully crafted. The entire thing is basically like modern day orchestra, which I think the way it's like arranged, to the point where it actually has movements within the songs that I think we got to talk about at some point. It's literally separated out into movements. No lyrics, just obviously just a lot of build up and instrumentation and composition that kind of puts it all together to do it in like entire story. And it's very, very impressive to me. And I really, really like a song that tells a story, that crafts an image, that makes pulls out like a specific vibe and makes you feel like a certain way. And this entire album does it really, really well. I think the parts that especially hit me were like literally the beginning and the end, which happens, I guess, for most albums that we said at this point. I've said it multiple times. I tend to really like albums like at the beginning and the end because those are the ones that like seem to hit me the hardest, and it kind of continues here. It's just extraordinarily like impressive. It literally is like a modern day orchestral composition. You can imagine yourself buying tickets and sitting down in like a theater and watching something like this. It's amazing. It's very long, but I really think that also adds on to it as well. But that's just my initial first thoughts take, if you must know.
If I must talk about music on the music podcast.
I know I've been blithering on about nothing, but if you had to know my things in my brain, obviously I have more than that.
You have been blowing out around nothing. So I definitely agree. This album is it puts you in an environment. It definitely paints a sort of feeling without doing a whole lot. I mean, the instrumentals, while, beautifully produced and really great sounding, at the end of the day, are mostly your like basic rock instrumentation with maybe some strings added on. But they create this really large atmosphere around them, and the different strong structures also help with this. The way that it is very build-centric, as has become a main staple of post-rock as a genre. But in terms of, I think one of my biggest problems with this record, which you said you actually you thought helped it, was its length. I feel like this album, and like it's just kind of always been the thing I had with it. I knew even going into it this time that though I did gain a lot of respect for it and I did enjoy a lot of pieces of it, I feel like it drags, just because of how long it is. Not really to say that I hate anything that it does. It just kind of does too much of it, and moves a little slow. I think that's probably, like, by a landslide, my biggest complaint with the record is its pace. But other than that, like you said, I think my favorite parts are generally around the beginning and the very end, with the exception of, I think, the big build on Static. I forget what the movement is called. Is that the World Fire?
World Police and Friendly Fire.
World Police and Friendly Fire. That movement is really great. That's around half or towards the end of Static, which I really, really liked.
The build starts at like 7 minutes, but isn't really get going anywhere until around like 13, 14 minutes.
Yeah. So that was probably my favorite bit on the whole record. But other than that, I'm with Pyrine. I think the first big build on Storm and then the last track are probably also highlight moments for me.
That's fair. Part of it's definitely probably I've heard this album so many times because I've been listening to it for like the past 4 years now. But it's gotten to the point, at least for me, I think that this album, like, I don't know, it's maybe the number one album for me that just does not feel its length for me. Whenever I listen to this album, I feel like it's done. I'm like, I feel like I sat here for 45, 50 minutes. I don't know why. Its length does not feel that for me. And part of what I think is a testament to that, at least for me, is the fact that it's broken up into movements. Because even without knowing, like, if you don't have, like, the movements put up, because they're not listed on Spotify or anything, sadly, I think they're still fairly distinct. And there are much worse offenders in the post-rock genre. Honestly, even, like, Swans comes to mind. Like Swans' newer stuff. That were, like, there will be, like, songs that are this length, but it'll all be for, like, one whole build, the entire song. Whereas this, I feel like each of these songs really has 3 or 4 distinct parts. So it kind of helps the pacing a lot for me when there's a 20-minute song, but the 20-minute song is in reality like 3 8-minute songs, which are still longer, but an 8-minute song I think is a lot easier to get behind than a 20-minute one. And for me, that makes it, I guess, not feel its length quite as much.
I think that is partially true. The only thing for me is, like, I mean, you are very correct in saying that the album is very much like a roller coaster. It's not really just like, everything is very distinct. It has its ups and it has its downs, and the movements separate themselves in that way most of the time. But to me, those individual ups and downs, that roller coaster ride isn't, I guess going on that metaphor, the hills aren't really steep enough for me, if that makes any sense. I feel like at times, like, I'm going up for a while, and I keep going up, and the up is really cool. I love the view from up here, but eventually I want the drop. Eventually I want to go back down. I want to have that quiet moment. I want it to get to the point, I guess. And when this record does get to the point, it's magical. It is beautiful. It is remarkably satisfying. It has a lot of it packs a lot into a little. I kind of said that earlier. With no lyrics, with no words, it has such weight to it. But I just feel like there's a lot of moments on the record where I just kind of feel like I've plateaued and I'm just waiting for the next bit. And I don't know. I don't really like feeling impatient when I listen to a record. It's like I said, that's my one and honestly biggest complaint with it.
Yeah.
That's
I kind of get what you mean. Like, at some point, like, I do definitely think if I was listening to this album, like, in a casual sense, I might just skip to the parts I like, because I feel like, to me, I'd rather just pick out the moments I enjoy. But it's also kind of a thing about a mindset. This isn't really an album that I think everyone can pick up casually and enjoy. You kind of have to enter it with, like, a certain, I am going to sit here and absorb what it's going to do, instead of just, like, letting it play in the background. And you could certainly enjoy it if you just try and listen to it casually, but you're not really going to get the full experience unless you sit down and actively try and understand what they're doing. And that's just not to everyone's taste. I really enjoyed the long build-up ones. I really do enjoy, like, the plateau bits, but I could also understand, like, how it could get boring. I admit, I've listened to this a few times. It's like, this bit, it's good, but I'd rather get to, like, the bit I like, so I kind of just skip ahead. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's just a case of, like, personal preference. Are you willing to kind of sit and go through that really, really long build-up to get that cathartic breakdown, or do you could just kind of want to get to the part you like? Which, there's not really any wrong way to listen to it. It just kind of speaks to a difference in taste and how you absorb music. And it's not like you can't enjoy it both ways. It's not like you are either liking it like this or you like it like that. It's just genuinely about the way you kind of absorb music. There's not really a wrong way to do that. I can enjoy it both ways. It's kind of like in the middle between you two, honestly.
Yeah,
That's fair. Yeah.
Do you have something to say? Sorry, I was gonna say something else.
No, I was gonna say that I agree with what Pyrine's saying, that it really is kind of just how you approach, like how one personally likes to approach music, which is nothing wrong with how anyone approaches music. It's just that this is the kind of album where it's so kind of out of the norm that if it's not the way you approach music, it probably isn't your thing, which is perfectly fine. There is no right and wrong way to consume music. But it's almost like, to me, like, I don't know. I almost think of, like, I think the average album is a lot closer to, like, a season of TV, right? Where there's an overarching thing and each song is, like, a little, like, 20-minute. I mean, it'd be 20-minute if it was like a TV show, but in this case, it's probably close to 3 or 4 minute, where it's more of like an immediate punch of everything going on. Whereas I feel like, even if it is technically 4 songs, in reality, if you're sitting down for Skinny Piss, it's like you're sitting down and committing to like a 2.5 hour film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so. And that kind of plays into the very cinematic nature of the record. I was going to call back to the metaphor of the roller coaster that I had said before. Whereas I think most albums are like roller coasters in the fact that they go up and down very frequently and very dramatically, very quickly. This is more like, it's kind of a weird one, but it's kind of like skiing. Like the builds are like you're riding the lift up. It's slow, it's gradual, and that feeling slowly accumulates. And then when it hits and you go down the hill, it's probably more satisfying than any roller coaster you'll find, or at least most of them. But I don't know. I feel like usually I'd choose the roller coaster, especially when there are some that would get that kind of adrenaline rush that the skiing would. This metaphor is really dumb. I don't know why I'm leaning into it, but I hope you get what I mean.
When I was in middle school, I went skiing, so
When I was 12 years old, I went skiing once, and I cried so hard on the slope because I was so terrified that I had to like basically crawl my way down the slope, and I never went skiing again after that.
Oh,
I love skiing.
I want to go skiing. I've never actually been skiing. It sounds really fun.
It's really fun. We should go sometime. It's really fun.
Yeah, then we could go to. I'm cutting this bit out, so we're not doxing. You know.
Okay, cool.
We're going to nondescript location in
We are going to this latitude, this longitude, at this date, this time.
Viewer, we are going to your house with skiing gear, and we are going to kill you.
I do see definitely what you say with this album's like roller coaster kind of feel. And I think part of what makes me enjoy this thing so much is I think it took me a while to get there. Like, I don't think it was an immediate love at first sight for me, but it's gotten to the point now where I really, I feel like while they're not as immediately gratifying, I almost enjoy the ski lifts up on this album as much as I enjoy the hills down at times, just because even if they're not as immediately fun and like grand, it's kind of like, it's very pretty ambience, and it's very like relaxing and beautiful. And I love it for that. Which I don't know. I guess that's partially why I like this album so holistically, because the perfect example I think is Sleep. Like Sleep, I don't think really hits its main moment until like 8-9 minutes in. I think Sleep is like the song on the album that takes the longest to get to like either of its moments. But the parts before it gets to it are like, oh, they're so gorgeous to me. I feel like I'm actively for Monheim, I feel like I'm actively almost like searching through some like creepy warehouse, and for Broken Windows, I feel like I'm like floating through a field with like pollen lifting up into the air. It's the prettiest thing ever. That's before we even get to the main hit. Like, it's a lot more like I'm floating around in this kind of beautiful ambience, and then when it hits, it's more like an extra reward of like, oh shit, this ambient album has like gas, like post rock on it.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's an interesting way to put it, because I don't want it to make it sound like I have a problem with post rock and builds as a thing, because I actually have heard things that I probably prefer of a similar style. Like one of my favorite albums of all time, Anthem Up There by Black Country New Road. The closing track on that record is very post-rock-y in a very similar way. It is very slow going, very build-centric, and I find it a lot more satisfying. I also have listened to Swans, a couple of their more modern records, which Jordyn mentioned earlier, and I think in a way I found those a little more satisfying, but I think for different reasons. Swans, I think I'm not going to go too much into detail, but I think the reason that I didn't find Godspeed as satisfying personally was because I felt like I kind of knew where it was going by the time we got there. Like, I heard everything swelling up, and I kind of knew, I had an idea in my head of where it was going to go, and my favorite parts of the record are probably when it defied those expectations, but I was kind of just like, all right, when are we going to get there? We're going up, I can see the top. But with something like Swans, I can't really see the top. Yeah, I always feel like they've hit the climax, like, okay, this is the big part, everything's on, and then they throw on more shit, and then they throw on even more, and it just keeps getting bigger, and it's like, when the hell is this gonna stop? And I think that makes it a bit more exciting for me, but, yeah, and now I'm tangenting again, but... Yeah, I think that's...
Talking on this music podcast, despicable.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it's just, after a little while, maybe it feels a bit predictable and just doesn't satisfy the itch as much, especially on re-listen for me. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a me thing.
We should kill this guy, Jordyn. You know what I mean?
We should kill this guy. I agree.
We should take over.
I will say... I almost want to say that, at least for me, that's what sets Skinny Fist apart so much in the post-rock genre, in a sense, because compared to not even just other post-rock, even other albums in their own discography, like take anything post-hiatus, or Yankee UXO especially, and even Extra Bay Sharp, basically anything that's not this album, actually, the post-rockness of post-rock is the way that we tend to expect it to be in post-rock, which is they're going to add on layers, and then there's going to be some big grand hit, right? And I think more than any other post-rock album I've heard, Skinny Fist is the most understated and like chill post-rock album. It is not nearly as intense as almost anything else I've heard in the genre, but that's because I think it focuses a lot more on being pretty. It's a lot less, oh shit, like, it's slamming me with this big moment a lot of the time, although it is definitely that. Whereas it's a lot more like, when it hits, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like the tension that's building up is like released, and like flower petals are flying everywhere, and like it's more of like a beautiful sight than like a big hit of a moment, you know?
It's more of a blossoming than an explosion.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like, boom, the house blew up, and it's awesome and it's intense, and it's more like the sunrise just hit, and it's so pretty, you know? Mm-hmm. It's a lot less immediately intense. But I like that about it. It makes it feel very, I don't know, very one of a kind in its genre, and also just extremely pretty. And I like that.
It is very pretty.
I also don't think there's an issue inherently with predictability, because a lot of music is built off of predefined, patterns and stuff like that. We as humans like recognizing patterns. And if you kind of think about it, if you blend a lot of music together, there are some very clear patterns on how things work. Build up and release is like one of the biggest ones. I don't think there's inherently an issue with, I feel like, this album doing pretty much, I think, would almost be like a stock standard story, because the way it does it to me is just extraordinarily satisfying. I don't care if I can see the finish line. I read books that I like all the time that I know how they end. I watch TV shows, the same deal. It's like, the way it's predictable is less of an issue. It's just more of how it's done. And if you don't like how it's done, that's not an issue. It's just, I think, the fact that, like, music is almost inherently built off of itself. If you look hard enough, you're going to see patterns that, like, in modern music, that's going to trace all the way fucking back to, like, Beethoven. It's always going to be like that. There's no real way to get, like, 100% original music in anything, and that's not a problem. It's just the way things are, and I don't mind it in this album. I don't mind it at all, because to me, it doesn't get old.
I guess I will say with the album, you mentioned it kind of earlier, is like, I think Pyrine did, that admittedly, as much as I do like the chill parts in between, I do find myself returning the most to those main moments of the song. Specifically, the best one I could say that for is the very start of the album, the very first movement, which is the title of the album, which is going to be Fist Like Intense, having the opening 6 minutes or so, because those opening 6 minutes is like, I think to this day, purely instrumental wise, the most hopeful thing I've ever heard made out of pure instruments. Like those first 6 minutes to me actively sound like a sunrise and a morning. And because of that, I've walked to my first class every day. Not every day, but like, I've walked to my first class many a times listening to those first 6 minutes. And it feels like such a way to start the day. It feels like I'm kicking it off. But aside from that, I will turn to that the most, probably, for like individual small listens if I'm not doing a full thing. I return to Monheim the first movement is the second movement is Sleep, and Bulldozer, the like fifth movement of the last song.
She dreamt she was a bulldozer.
Yeah.
There's more. But I forget it.
She dreamt she was a bulldozer. She dreamt she was alone in an empty field.
Yeah.
I've turned to those three moments I think the most whenever I do like a shorter hit of this album. So you're not entirely wrong, whichever one of you said that earlier. That sometimes I do just return to certain. Yeah, I do. I sometimes I will occasionally return to certain moments.
Always right. When people fucking finally learn that, maybe things will start changing for the better.
Okay.
I actually do admit, She Jumped You as a Bulldozer, She Jumped You as Alone in an Empty Field. That might just be straight up my favorite part of the entire album. It's so unbelievably good. I'm weak to a few instruments. I will admit this many times. You bring in a piano, you bring in a guitar, you bring in a goddamn pipe organ, I will be there. And good, like, violins, just really long and drawn out to me, is like instantly I am there 100% of the time. That's always like a 10 out of 10 moment for me, because it's just like, it's like slowly reaching in and just drawing out like a fucking, like a string in my heart and just slowly playing that.
That's
it's
so
so
artsy,
goddamn
man.
good.
The strings in your heart.
Yeah.
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 I'm waiting for the insult.
No, it's okay. Sorry.
You guys always this mean to each other on the show?
What?
On the show.
On the show.
Oh.
I don't know if you know this, but me and him have been going through a bit of a rough patch. We've been at each other's throats for a while now, and now it's kind of just blowing to the surface.
Is
Ever
this
since
show
the
just a cover
incident.
for you guys to like be able to debate each other in secret?
We just bicker like a divorced couple every single day we talk.
Yeah, no, it really is that way. But yeah, to some things, I mean, I kind of agree with you about that movement as well. Like, I remember you telling me, and I don't know if this is still the case. Like, I don't know if you found out differently or if that was just like an early perspective. But I remember you telling me that generally a lot of people think the last track on the album is the weakest.
Yes, that is.
I don't get it.
Like there are truthers like me and Pyrine around. Like we're not infrequent because this whole album is loved, but especially on first listen, the common thing you hear people say is that the last song was the weakest, and that they and it was the one that it was like it's our default at the end, and I used to think the same way. I think when I first heard the album, I just don't, and that's my favorite track on the album. So
yeah, see, that's weird to me, and I want to say this because I know in the past when I've talked about this record and I said like, oh, I don't really get it. People were like, oh, you have TikTok brain. Oh, you only want the hype moments and the aura. You know, you only want the big explosions. And it's like, no, that's not my issue with the record. I love the low-key moments. I love the sample work. Like that's probably my favorite bit of the record is all the sample work and stuff, which also probably makes Static my favorite track because I think it has one of the best ones, if not the best one. And I love that last track. It's my problem with the record isn't that it doesn't have enough big moments. It's that the big moments take too long. Is that it's slow. It's not that the album's low-key. It's that the album doesn't move quick enough to me. Like that's that. I want to clarify that, I guess, if I haven't somehow beaten that dead horse already. But yeah, basically all that to say, I love the low-key moments on this record. When they hit, they really do hit. And that is one of the best ones. Just that last track in general. Especially that movement that She Dreamt It Was a Bulldozer. That whole thing was very good. Yeah.
I'm glad you like that song so much. If I can ask you a question, with that last track, because I know outside of this show, just me and Bimler as friends, I have long praised to Tyler my love of drone music.
Did you just leak my real name on the podcast? You're going to jail. No,
wait, shit. Am I not allowed to say that?
No, you can. It's no secret. It's literally like half of my username is my real name.
My bad. What do you think of like the last two movements? Because both Death Camp Drone and Antennas to Heaven are just straight up. They are drone movements. But I think they are one of the prettiest I think they are one of the, if not like the prettiest moment on the record. It like, especially the final one. It actively sounds like you are like reaching heaven essentially to me. It is like so beautiful.
I remember liking the last the very very ending But I think Death Camp Drone is maybe a little bit of a weaker moment on that song to me. Just because of how little is actually happening. But I do remember liking the ending. I do remember it being very very pretty. So, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, in general, this is I've had even though I've really only like locked in and listened to it very recently. I've like I said before, I've heard it in the past. I've had a very long and storied history with the record. And me and Jordyn have butt heads on it constantly. But I think overall, I've gained a lot of respect for the record. I kind of said that a lot a couple of times during the podcast. But as a general statement, I do want to say that I do like it. And I can see myself returning to it in the future when I'm in the mood for something like it. How often that'll be, I can't make any promises, but it is very unique. It has a lot of weight to it. Godspeed as a band are a phenomenal group with amazing messages and perspectives on the world. Great takes, guys. Keep it up.
No, truly.
And I also do want to look into more of their albums in the future as I hear the structure of especially their later works get a bit more maybe familiar to me, or something that I would look for in that kind of music. But yeah, no, I like Lift Your Skinny Fists, and I certainly understand its importance. As an album, I'd probably give it like, I think the last time we recorded this, I said like a 79 or an 80, but I'd honestly bump that up to like an 82, 83.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, this album like genuinely means like a lot to me. I think that maybe it took me a hot second to fully grasp it, but the more I hear it, the more I think it is one of the few things I've heard that's like perfect or near perfect to me. The way it kind of contrasts between hope and despair throughout the record, the hope moments and the more bleak moments, I think is done wonderfully. And as you said, their messaging is always on point. The way that they, the fact that they are such a clearly political band without having any lyrics, but like it's still, that message still really shines through. I think it's done so well. And I'm glad that they're, even current day in 2025, they're still fighting for the right things, as you can see with the most recent album.
Yes.
I think for this release of theirs, which is my favorite of theirs, one of my top albums of all time, I think I'd give this a 99 out of 100. I don't think it's perfect, but I think it's like right there. I think it's a solid 99 for me. If I had to,
Wow.
really had to, it's
We have hope
right
moments and
there.
aura.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Just
thinking
like real life.
He said it has hope moments, and I was like, hope moments and aura. Sorry, that was really not. It wasn't as funny as I thought it was. It was funnier in my head. What do you think, Pyrine?
You're as funny as I think you are.
Hey, that's not
That was something
necessary.
nice. That was nice. That was
Oh,
something.
I thought you meant.
Nice.
I thought you meant because you
No,
don't think
I'm-
I'm funny, and I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
no.
I'm sorry. Oh no! Oh no! Now
No.
he's going.
No. God, I think my biggest issue with the album, honestly, is that I just don't always have a whole lot to say on it. Like, I looked at recording, it's like 30 minutes. We didn't really have a whole lot to say in it, but that's because there really isn't a whole lot to say. It's more of an experience than an actual thing you can, like, have a big, in-depth discussion about, unless you really get down to, like, the actual composition. And to me,
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing. I don't always listen to music for a lot of, like, the meaning behind it. I like the vibes. I like the vibes a lot of the time. This album has very, very good vibes. I'm just only going to give it, I think I've dropped my scores as I, like, originally listened to it. Probably going to be, like, a flat 90. And I'm only going to say that because I really love the composition, but I don't think a song can get over a 90 for me unless it, like, really connects with me in a way that's really emotional and, like, really understands, like, a bit of my soul. And that doesn't always happen, so I can't really give it to this one. I think it is masterfully crafted, in my opinion. It is a piece of modern art. It is like a sculpture, like a Greek sculpture, words.
Alright, we're talking about this out.
but-
This isn't the Ascension video. It's not. We're talking about Skinny Fists.
You're not the Ascension video. Yeah.
Oh, man.
It's like, but yeah, like I'd say like a flat 90 would be good for me, like a flat 90, and I can respect that note.
I should also say, you said it's kind of a short recording, but this is also the second time we're recording this. We basically did the entire video already. Like, what was it? 2 days ago? 3 days ago? 3 days ago.
Like 3 days ago, yeah.
It's currently 10 p.m. If you wonder why we sound really tired.
Yeah. So we're yeah. But that
I was
aside,
watching Twin Peaks before this, and I was like falling asleep during it.
that aside, yeah, that was Godspeed you, Black Emperor. Lift your skinny fists like antenna to heaven. Thank you, Jordyn, for coming on the show and showing us the record. Next week, me and Pyrine are going to be listening to this record. You can't point up, Jordyn. Just look up. Just look up really excited. Like, yeah, there you go. Good. You're doing great. It's that album right there.
Wow, that album, wow.
A pretty great album by my favorite band, if I had to pick one, ever. Just in terms of what they've done for me, and it's not a very hot take, but this album, while not their best, is pretty great, and I'm excited to get him in the rabbit hole. But we will see you next week for that. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you around. Bye. I knew it. No, you can't be conspiring on this. You can't do la anymore, guys.
It's not conspiring. It's natural state of things. You've la-la'd before, and you're never getting over it.
Shut up.